think, T-Real, you may be that first generation that also has come around now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of your life, have you lived outside of a black neighborhood?
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Grew up in the suburbs.
All right. So let's go back here. Do you guys think that part of the reason that we are in the shape we in, or I'm gonna just ask it open-ended. What do you think, black folks, are we making things worse when we take our kids out the hood? For, you know,
here we go.
You know, we grew up, what do we watch? We moving on up. We trying to get out. We good times. We trying to get out. And so when we get out of the 70s, our generation, we actually stayed in for all of our childhood before we were later moving out. T-Real's generation hasn't ever really been in there. I know my kids haven't. They can't remember. Has that been good, Kurt, or has that been bad?
Damn.
I think that has contributed to the problems we have today with those, you know, bad black folks, or do you think you just want to?
This is what has happened. So, middle class and upper middle class black people have moved out. So, essentially, they've turned lower class neighborhoods essentially into the projects. So you can't, the genie is already out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. So because that has happened, you have virtually no middle. So we're all from Detroit. You know, Cass and Renaissance are always going to be at the top. And despite what they say, it's not that they have the best teachers or the best school. It's because they have the best students. They have a high concentration of two-parent households with a good amount of income. Parents probably went to college or have some college. And then you have the other schools where with the charter schools have taken out the middle. So you have the elite schools, then the middle kids, because of behavior issues, have been essentially taken out and put in charter schools. And then you just have the bottom, and that's what's left. And you don't want your kid in that environment.
You think that's good or bad? What should we do? If it,
the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back.
It's done. It's done.
So it's like a wrap on that, and so the push for charter schools. So it might be bad for your kid. So you take your kid out of the regular public school, put them in the charter school, and it'll be okay because none of the charter schools are performing better than the top public schools. So even though you're saying I'm putting in my kid in this school, this charter school, because it's a better school, that charter school is not outperforming the top public school. The top public school is still outperforming that charter school. But now you've made the other 10 public schools drop lower because you've taken out the middle. You've taken out the parents that are going to come to the games, the parents that are going to volunteer. They're all at the charter schools.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's deep. And let me ask this real quick, and Mark, we're going to go to you.
And you need that parental participation.
So when did you move out of a predominantly black neighborhood? Do you remember around what age you were? We'll just do it that way. Oh, Kurt, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Do you remember what age you were when you moved out of a predominantly black neighborhood with your family? I think that's the key, with your family.
Was that to me or Marcus?
To you.
Oh, 2000 when we moved to Ann Arbor. This is the other thing I would say. All the things that Austin and Madison and Sydney were exposed to, they would never have in the city. Austin played lacrosse. Austin is a horrible lacrosse player, but she had that experience. So if she was in the city, she would have never had that experience. So you get a bunch of experience that you wouldn't have if you stay in the environment you are, because it just would never be offered.
Damn, not a
So
soccer
there's a-
mom, a lacrosse mom.
A lacrosse mom, right?
there's a skate park right down the street. We have like 5 pools, tennis. They had a equestrian club. That's just stuff that would never happen.
But real quick, so your family kept its strong Black identity, but you still moved out to the burbs, right?
Correct.
Okay, Mark, when did you leave a major, was a Black area to move out, and did you take your Black identity with you to that location?
Man, dude, this is a conversation that to really get into it, we have to get into the origins. I don't know if we got time to do that tonight, because what I'm seeing is that where we are today is really the leftovers of, I'll just say, an agenda that's been going on since maybe the late 60s or the early 70s, where, like I said, the whole idea was the disintegration of the Black family. And here it is where we are now. I think we're seeing the effects of this. Now, maybe I can't really speak to this situation now because, as you know, when I moved out of Detroit, I moved out of the country. But what I did see is that it got to a point where, we're talking 80s and 90s. I still liked my neighborhood. It was still a pretty decent neighborhood. But sometime in the mid part of the first decade of the 21st century, I started seeing a lot of changes that I just didn't like. Like, this is not the same neighborhood I grew up in. I'm seeing, my whole life in Northwest Detroit, in that neighborhood, I never saw an abandoned house. And all of a sudden, by the I don't know, maybe 2008, 9, I saw like 6 houses that were boarded up right on my street in that three block area. And I'm starting to see renters move into the neighborhood. I'm starting to see this just raucous element. How Chris Rock described it as different between Black folks and niggas. I saw that. It was just very clear. And it was like, Black people, we had this thing about keeping it real, but it's like, how real you gonna be when you got neighbors who is really real? And it's like, okay, I'm Black, but not Black like that. And it's like, this is something that Will Smith used to talk about, the difference when people was teasing him about, why you carrying them books around? You trying to be smart or something. And I'm not saying all Black people are like that, but I'm just saying I saw that shift in what my generation was and the new generation that was coming. And I'm seeing that this is what was programmed 30, 40, 50 years ago. And we're starting to see that now. I'm curious to know what Detroit looks like nowadays, just in the neighborhood that I grew up in.
Kurt, would you want to jump in on that 14 real goals?
So I was just on my block.
Was that my block too?
No, I was on Edison, 12th Street.
Okay, different block. All right.
Yeah, it's probably at this point 30% Caucasian, and probably in the next 10 years it'll go from 50 to probably 90 to 100%.
Wait, in your old neighborhood?
Yes.
What area did you live in? I mean, I don't know what.
Boston, Edison.
Oh, you lived in the nice side of Detroit.
Well,
with the
like you
houses.
said, it changed just like your neighborhood changed.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny about that, because if you go back to the 40s, 50s, and maybe the part of the 60s, like that Boston Edison area, that was like sophisticated upper crust Detroit. I mean, there's some beautiful homes.
Until the riots. Until the riots.
Right.
Right.
Kurt, have you been over to our old neighborhood where we all started from, over by our junior high school?
Yes, actually, and presentation still looks really nice.
Yeah.
Those blocks up until Outer Drive are still really nice.
Mm-hmm.
When you get closer to 8 Mile, it goes down, and then from probably when you get past what was the old hospital that used to be there?
Was it Sinai Grace?
Yeah.
Yeah. So across from the Northwest Activity Center. Yeah, sorry, bro. I'll take a picture next time I go by there. But since I'm out in the neighborhoods, I've been taking pictures of people's houses or like the houses I used to live in.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll post them all and like who used to live there on my Facebook.
That would be so cool.
Because so I sent one to my cousin Boom, and he's here from Egypt. So he's like, wow. But yeah.
I did that same thing some years ago when a lot of my family moved out here to Arizona. I sent them photos of their old neighborhood, which was over there off of like, let's see, for our YouTube audience that knows Detroit a little bit, just think of Rosa Parks. We just talked about the riots. They live really at ground zero where the riots went on, Northwestern High School, etc. And it was sad. I mean, some of the buildings were still there that, they remember from 30 or 40 years prior, but they were abandoned. They just looked like somebody just up and left. And so it never torn down. And it was kind of heartbreaking because their homes, in some cases, had been totally torn down. So it looked like someone's mouth with missing teeth. House, open, house, open. And so I think last time I went around, even my old neighborhood, it was beginning to look like that the same way. But T-Real, let's come over to you now, because you're a part of that generation, knowing where our family started. Our grandparents lived, as a matter of fact, I'll say, you moved to a predominantly, or we'll just say you moved out the Black neighborhood even before your grandparents did, which is a trip. So now, I mean, you got your own family now and everything. How do you see it? When you
Hold it, wait. I need to ask him this. I want you to finish this because when you introduced that, I need to know, T-Real, what is his neighborhood? What is predominantly what? Because we know there's an enormous Hispanic population in Florida. So I need to know, like, okay, what's the breakdown of his neighborhood, the percentages of, say, Black, white, Latino, first of all? That's what I need to know.
So are you talking about current, or are you talking about when I was under my parents' house?
Let's do both. Let's do both.
Growing up, if I had to throw out a ratio, I mean, it would be probably 70% white. If I had to throw out a ratio. And then it would be, the next would probably be Hispanic, and then Black right under them. I think that's a fair estimate. Currently, where I'm at in Tampa, this side of the way is predominantly Hispanic. So I mean, I'm in an apartment now. The maintenance people, a lot of them only speak Spanish, so very, very rough English. Everybody just, they're speaking in Spanish. I don't know. They could be setting me up. I have no idea. But that's where I came from, and then how it is now. As far as how I look at it, I personally, I understand why we left Detroit, because when we left, I was almost 6. But Detroit is always home, and anytime I go back, I feel like that's where I'm from. Like this, I feel the most comfortable. I don't care who's around. That just feels like that's where I'm from. And being removed from specifically the inner city of Detroit, it's kind of like there's things I missed out on as far as the culture. There's no culture here. When I go up there, there's just just seeing people that look like me on a consistent basis. It's like I miss that.
Wait. What do you mean there's no culture? What do you mean there's no culture? Do you mean there's not a culture there that you can identify with?
Sure, I'll go with that. Yeah, I mean, when I say there's no culture, I mean there's like when it's Florida is what a lot of people like to call a melting pot. Everybody comes from Florida. You have a lot of different people from the islands that come. You have a lot of people that come from the north because they don't want to deal with the snow anymore. And then you have some people that were just born and raised there, right? So it's just this entire mixture. and it's not really something. When you think of Detroit, it's tough, grind, Motor City. That's what it is. But Florida, it's just, you know, you people are just thinking of retirement or money. As far as here, you have the theme parks and the beaches and stuff like that. That's about it. From me being inside looking out, that's how it is to me. When I go to Detroit, I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's just, you know, grind, blue collar. It's still not a get out of my way, tough, like a mean kind of attitude about it. But I don't know. I just identify with that wholeheartedly. So, and going back to your original question, being removed from more predominantly Black community sucks. To me, it really does. Just not being able to go ahead and identify with a lot of people. I can't just. I go out there. It's just not the same, right? I'm not. We weren't invited over to people's homes now, or just as far as like, oh, we just go over there and everybody's barbecuing. That just was never that I never had that experience and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Man, that's so on point, because that's really you were going right to where I was trying to lead us, and that's why I pointed this out earlier. It almost seems as though